Welcome to this session of the Research and Innovation Days of the European Commission, devoted to the important question of partnering with member states in the post-COVID recovery and resilience strategies that we're working together to produce. My name is Patrick Child. I am Deputy Director General in DG Research and Innovation, and I have the honor of steering and moderating this session. And what we're going to explore today is a number of important questions. I mean, firstly, the huge potential contribution of research and innovation in supporting Europe's post-COVID recovery and resilience strategies around our green and digital agenda. And what I also want to look at today is the content that we're seeing in member states' national recovery and resilience plans that we've been looking at recently in the Commission, and very encouraging signs that there's a strong dimension of research and innovation in all of those, because the Recovery and Resilience Facility and the Next Generation EU programme that we put in place is a unique opportunity to drive forward our agenda of both reform, of investment and synergies with EU programmes around research and innovation. And we also, I hope, have an opportunity to touch on some of the exciting ways in which the European Union instruments are available to support the efforts that member states will be making in the coming months on the implementation of their recovery and resilience plans. And so I'm very happy to be joined today by three very distinguished panelists who are going to animate our discussions, I'm sure, in a very interactive and lively way. And so first, I'm happy to welcome Maria de Graça Carvalho, a member of the European Parliament and a key member in the Parliament of the Industry, Research and Energy Committee. So you're very welcome, Graça. And we also have Céline Gauer, who is Director General of the European Commission's Recovery and Resilience Task Force. So Céline, you're very welcome. And thirdly, we have Dr. Livia Vaskova, who is Advisor to the Prime Minister and Director General of the Recovery Plan section in the Slovak Ministry of Finance. So what we're going to do today is we're going to have two rounds of questions that I'm going to bounce off our three panelists, and then we're going to open things up to a discussion from questions from the audience through Slido. So, I mean, I hope you're all already connected to Slido and been thinking about your questions in advance, but now also is your chance, and obviously you'll want to respond to some of the discussions that we're going to have. But I'd like to kick things off by asking Graça, from your perspective and from your overview, your helicopter view of the recovery and resilience strategies in the European Parliament, what are your expectations for the research and innovation dimension of Europe's post-pandemic recovery strategies? And how do you see the interaction between, on the one hand, research and innovation, and on the other, different policy strands which all come together in the research agenda, but also in the Recovery and Resilience Facility and support of our green and digital transitions? Graça, please.
Thank you, Patrick. Good morning. I'd like also to thank the invitation for this panel and to greet also the other members of the panel. I'm really convinced that research and innovation is crucial for the economic development in general, and specifically for the recovery, to recover from the crisis due to the pandemic. And I have been defending throughout my career that we should devote part of, before was the regional funds to research and innovation, now it continues to have, because we should not forget also the European budget in the regional funds. We should continue to put the research and innovation as a priority, and special the recovery and the resilience plan. So my hope is that all the member states will devote a considerable share of their available funds of resilience and the recovery plan to research and innovation. This is important because it is proved by economists, by the reality that investing in research, investing in skills is the best way to invest in the economy and to make the recovery. Also, for our ambition in Europe for the green transition and for the digital transition, we need research and innovation. For example, take the green transition. You have two ways, and you need to combine these two ways. One is our style of life. Of course, we need to adapt our style of life, but we don't want, I'm sure that no one wants to give up of the certain comfort that we have in life, to have the housing with the heating, to be able to travel, the mobility that we have, and to keep certain degree of this style of life. We need better and more technology. We need, for example, clean transportation and technology that in some cases is still not available. Some that are available and need to be scaled up, but some are not yet available. So it's very important that we continue to invest in research and innovation so that this technology will be available. I give you a very concrete case, aviation, in order to be able to continue to travel. And the mobility, for example, inside Europe is one fundamental part of our European project, of our future as Europeans, to be able to cooperate, to visit each other in work and business for our internal market. And we really need to have a way that we can fly with less impact in the environment. And we don't have yet that technology. We don't have yet the possibility to have a full electric plane or an hydrogen plane. So instruments like the Clean Aviation Partnership, that I have the honor to be a rapporteur, is very important for this transition. But it's not the only case. We have the case in many other parts of transport, on the energy production, in all sectors of economy. We still require further research and innovation to be able to do the green transformation without damaging the economy and without transforming drastically the way we live. Also, for the digital transition, we need more research and innovation. In terms, we have an ambitions in Europe to lead this digital transformation. And for that, we need to regain the capability of manufacturing in the digital sector. And for that, we need more research in the field, more research in quantum computing, more research that we will be able to have a strong position, for example, on the supercomputers, not only to use, but also to be able to build them. And today, we are voting the high performance computing report here in the Parliament. Is a great day for the research in the area of digital. And these are efforts at European level, but we need to have efforts at the member states level. We all, European level, member states, and also private sector, we need to invest more in research, and we need to use the funds that are available to us for research and innovation. We have a hope that governments all over Europe realize that, and they really invest on research and innovation. It has not been the case in the past. So the Parliament and the Commission that have a possibility to follow up, monitoring the use of the Recovery and Resilience Plan, I hope that this monitoring will guide the Member States to make sure that important investments are done in this area. Because in the past, in the end, in the beginning, was very good plans to invest in research and innovation, and after they were used in something else, usually in big constructions, roads, and
yeah.
To invest in research is more important at this time.
Now, Gracia, thank you very much. You've made very eloquently the case for the importance of research and innovation at the heart of green and digital transition. And I'd like now to take this straight over to Céline Gauer. I'm very grateful, Céline, that you've had time to join us today, because I know you're right at the centre of the work that we're doing in the European Commission on the recovery and resilience plans of all our member states. So I guess my question to you is, well, are the member states listening? Have they heard the message? What is the position, as you see it from your overview position, in regards of the dimension of research and innovation in the national plans? Céline.
Thank you very much, Patrick. Good morning to everyone, and thank you very much for having me with you today. Well, the Recovery and Resilience Facility is, as its name says, not only about economic recovery and quick investment to generate recovery, but also about resilience. And twin transition, as Maria just said, is absolutely at its core. And that places automatically research and innovation and development as a central feature of the facility. If I look at the 24 plans that we have got to date, what I really see is that the research and innovation is at the center of those plans, not only in terms of funds allocated to it, but also in terms of transformative reforms included in the plan. If I start with the funding, we see that all the plans that have been notified yet do have either specific components dedicated to research and development, or integrated strong elements in the different parts of the plan. And the funding that is dedicated and earmarked for research and development in the different plans amounts to roughly 35 billion. So 35 billion, that means a third of the Horizon Europe budget that will then come on top as EU funded public research. That represents a very significant portion of the grant allocation for the member states, between roughly 4 and 13%, with very significant outliers having more than 20% of the overall fund in some cases. Very importantly, and that's probably one of the things I'm the happiest about, the RF will be really instrumental in transforming the impact and the attention given to research and development in some member states, in particular in Eastern Europe, where the current funding is relatively limited, and where the allocations stemming from the RF are very, very large. And here, this combination means that we have, in a few cases, more than the doubling of the overall funding, public funding to research and innovation as a result of the RF. So it is really an occasion to have a step change in the integration of research and innovation in the development of those countries. What is also extremely important is a link to reforms, because all the plans do have to combine packages of investment and reform. So not only do we have this very significant amount of money, but we are also addressing some of the biggest issues that you have identified years after years, that we have identified also as part of the European semester. And just to give a few examples, I think reducing fragmentation between research institutions has been a recurrent objective for us, and is taking place in a very drastic manner in some of the plans. Just look at the Spanish plan, for example, which we have just assessed last week. Another thing that I find very promising is the efforts made by a number of member states to increase the attractiveness of research careers in public institutions. So that goes really from recruitment to salary to mobility of researchers, but also to the possibility for them to combine public and private activity. And we have a number of plans that are very, very significant measures to that extent. Since the Latvian plan is a good example of that efforts. Other important reforms that are relevant for the future of research and innovation are the reduction of administrative burden for accessing funding. We know that there is quite a lot of money available, but accessing it is sometimes a challenge. And here, if you look at, for example, the Italian or the Portuguese plan, we really have very good measures taken to make it easier. And finally, I think a recurrent challenge for many of the countries is the cooperation between business and academia, making sure that we have a better transition from the research itself to the implementation and turning the research into innovation. And here we have in quite a number of plans really significant measures for facilitating that transfer and making it smoother. So yes, I think there was an opportunity to be taken by the member states with a resilience and recovery facility, and this has happened, and this is very, very promising for the future of research and innovation in Europe. Thank you, Patrick.
Thanks very much, Céline, and indeed some very encouraging signals there and some very telling examples, which I hope when we come to the implementation of the plans will have, as you say, a major impact on the resilience and the long-term sustainability of our economies, and that we really are able to seize the opportunity of the funds that are now available in the Recovery and Resilience Facility in Next Generation EU to make a real difference for our societies. And I think it's great that we've got with us Livia, who I hope is going to be able to share with us some thoughts and insights about how, in the specific case of Slovakia and the plan that the Slovakian authorities have been developing, and I know, Livia, you've been driving from your position in the government. Could you just share with us a little bit how you see the specific elements in your reform and investment agendas that are being supported or will make progress using the elements of the Recovery and Resilience National Plan that you've been developing?
Good morning, and thank you very much, Patrick, for inviting me and for selecting Slovakia in this session devoted to partnership between Commission and Member States. I will start with a bit of context about the country. Slovakia has a very impressive convergence in the first decade of this century to the EU average. However, in the last decade, it has been stagnating, and it seems that its model that has been mostly based on cheap labor and luring of foreign direct investment has been exhausted. So that's why we need to restart the engine and focus more on increasing productivity, including investments in research, development, innovation, and the quality of our institutions that will determine economic success in the future. The Slovak Recovery and Resilience Plan has been conceived exactly in this manner, and it should restart convergence and should contribute to Slovakia being a more innovative, healthy country with modern administration. When coming back to our research, development, and innovation, it includes a component that is directly linked to R&D with an allocation of 600 million euros, which represent around 10% of the overall envelope. I think it comes nicely after Céline has presented the percentages for all member states. Moreover, we have a specific component that is focusing on attracting and retaining talents. Both components are addressing main structural weaknesses in the Slovak system, and these weaknesses are fragmentation of the governments. So we have several agencies that are channeling support. Sometimes it's not very well coordinated. So that's why our main reform is linked to the remodeling of the system with having a central body, a secretariat, that will basically be a coordinator and that will guide all other line ministries and agencies how to spend money and how to spend it wisely in order that it really contributes to a more innovative country. Then we have insufficient public-private cooperation and very low funding in the research, development, innovation. This was also mentioned by Céline, that is mostly in Eastern Europe, that we have these difficulties. It's linked, I would say, to several factors. For instance, that many companies have foreign parent company where the R&D entities are based. So that's why, for us, I would say, from objective reasons, it's more difficult to develop our own capacities. But at least I would say that from the public perspective, it's something that we should find a niche and that we should support in order that the country can become an innovative leader and can basically converge to the EU average. That is one of the objectives of our plan. Then we have almost no internalization in our R&D, be it in the participation in, for instance, Horizon 2020, or in the percentage of foreign-based academic staff in our universities. These are also elements that we are focusing in our school components, in particular in the component that is reforming universities, and that is also providing some funding in order to make it more attractive.
Great. Thank you very much, Livia. And I mean, you've made some really valuable points there. I think the emphasis that you put on building up long-term talent and skills in the ecosystem is very important. I think that you put emphasis on the challenge of fragmented government and research landscapes, which I think is common in many, many countries. And also, I think that one of the things we certainly would like to see happening with the recovery and resilience plans and the resources that they will be channeling into member states across the European Union is that countries will be better placed also to seek out synergies and greater engagement with EU programs, including programs like Horizon Europe, Research and Innovation Framework Programme, and others as well. I also want to come back a bit later on to the question you made on the important challenge of stimulating public-private collaboration. How do we bring privately funded research activities into our overall picture using the RRF mechanisms? But before we get to that, I'd like to come back to Céline. Perhaps building on what you said earlier, Céline, could you help us understand a little bit better the sort of assessment criteria that the Commission has been using in looking at the many national plans, which, as you say, we're now well advanced in the discussion. And as we've been preparing our opinions on those plans, you know, what are the things that we've been looking at in terms of assessment criteria, and how are those, in your view, relevant for our objectives that you've so clearly explained for the sort of resilience and the research and innovation dimension that will bring?
Thank you very much, Patrick. Well, the process has not really started with the notification of the plan itself. It has started already back in September, while the regulation was still being negotiated between the co-legislator, and where we have started working together with the member states in the preparation of their plan. The regulation foresees essentially four elements or four dimensions for the assessment of the plan: the relevance, the effectiveness, the efficiency, and the coherence of the plan. And it sets out 11 very detailed assessment criteria that we had to look at. None of those is really focused on research and innovation, but most of the important ones are directly relevant for research and innovation. The first one is a need for the member states to address a significant subset of relevant country-specific recommendations. Looks like a lot of jargon, but to put it in simple terms, I think yearly the Council is addressing to the member states a number of recommendations in relation to reforms and investment to address structural challenges that the countries are facing. And this to develop the plans, the member states had to take those recommendations as a compass and make sure that it would cover really a significant subset of those. And when we look at those recommendations, what we see is that all the member states had over the years direct recommendation in relation to research and innovation. Be it on investment, so you have to invest more, you have to focus investment on research. But also in the way the research is organized and the research is taking place in the member states. So support to research entities, access to finance for innovative companies, or a better link, as I mentioned before, between academia and business. So one of the first things that the Commission did and still doing in assessing the plan is looking at those recommendations and seeing to what extent the plans are addressing them. So the situation I was describing earlier is no surprise, that because you have this broad range of recommendation and you have also this broad range of measures addressing the research and innovation. Turning to the twin transition, as in green and digital, you have there two very strict requirements. 37% of the overall expenditure of the plan has to go to green, and 20% has to go to digital. And we see that for almost all plans, those targets are well exceeded. And here comes, as Maria already mentioned, comes a link to research. because some of the way of addressing the green transition is to develop technologies that are not in existence right now. So clean power is a very good example. The need to decarbonize transport and to find new technologies that will allow a greater role for hydrogen and a better e-mobility is a huge objective for the member states, and they are using and channeling directly the money to achieving these objectives. The same for digital. Advanced technologies are very well represented in the national plan, and they do rely very necessarily on research and innovation. Another interesting feature of the plan is also the use of multi-country and cross-border projects, and we see a lot of important projects of common European interests that are addressed by the plans, being for data, for cloud, for microelectronics, and those projects have by definition a very intense content in research on innovation. So as you see, research innovation, while not being an assessment criteria in itself, is really present in the most important ones, and that has really triggered, I think, the very good picture that I described earlier. And the last word maybe on implementation, because it was rightly pointed out that it's not only about planning well, it's also about making sure that the money that was foreseen for research goes to research and doesn't go to building road or bridges instead. Here, the whole facility is a performance-based instrument. So that means that member states will, when they do implement the plans, will have to meet the targets that we have agreed with them and made binding on them of not only of spending but also of results achieved as a result of the facility. And this is something that we're going to monitor throughout the lifetime of the facility in close cooperation with member states, and also having a particular attention to the synergies with all the funds, including Horizon Europe. So I think it sets a very, very nice picture for the work ahead. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Céline. And I'm very pleased that you mentioned in particular the importance that we have been putting on the international, the cross-border cooperation dimension of the plans, because I wanted to come now to a question precisely to Grâce on that issue. And the question is really, how do we ensure that the consolidated collective effort that member states are making through their recovery and resilience plans is more than the sum of its parts? How do we exploit the European dimension of this massive recovery effort that member states are making around the green and digital twin transitions? So seen from the European Parliament, how do we capitalize this European dimension?
Thank you very much. This is a very important question, and we have been defending the importance of the European dimension of the resilience and recovery plans. And one way, in concrete terms, to do it through the synergies with the existing European programs, like Horizon Europe. So we can use the synergy in a synergetic way. Recovery and resilience plan complemented the Horizon Europe. And the European Commission is doing a kind of guide that in a clear way will show the simple, practical way to do these synergies. But for example, the Recovery and Resilience Plan can act upstream and downstream the projects on Horizon Europe. Upstream, having the conditions, the infrastructures, investing in skills that will create the conditions for a country to apply to Horizon Europe. Downstream, to upscale and to valorize economic valorization of the results of Horizon Europe. And again, for example, for the partnerships, the partnerships that we are developing under Horizon Europe can be a central part that will give this European dimension to certain projects. Take, for example, the hydrogen partnership. We know that many countries are putting in the resilience and recovery plans hydrogen as a priority. We have a partnership that involves many countries that is developing research and the development and new technologies. So to complement the national plans around this partnership will be a way to give an added value, so we don't end up with 27 different strategies of hydrogen in Europe, because that is quite bad. We need to have the market, the European market. We need, for example, if we need to have a transporting pipeline, we need to have an European dimension. So I see the Horizon Europe and these partnerships as the center around which the different national plans can develop. And we have included also in the partnerships the possibility that the member states use resilience and recovery plan for their national contributions for this partnership. So they can have, the life is facilitated in economic terms to be member of the partnerships. And because we want to broaden as much as we can these instruments of Horizon Europe so that all the countries are able to participate. And now they can use recovery and resilience plan to have their national contribution, to scale up, to do their national projects, but we hope that in connection with what is happening in Horizon Europe, so that we have an European approach. So we have an European strategy for these areas and not individual member state strategies. The challenges are so big in terms, for example, of the energy production, in terms of the mobility. Clean mobility is going to be very difficult if we want to have the ambitious targets for 2030. It's only 9 years. So we need to work together. So let's get the different national plans around what we are doing in Horizon Europe, and together we will be able to face this challenge and to achieve the targets. Individual is going to be very difficult.
No, Gasa, thank you very much, and thank you for raising the very practical example and opportunity that there is for close cooperation and synergies between national plans and the Horizon Europe partnerships. I think the same is also true for the Horizon Europe missions, these headline goals that we've established under our new program in areas like beating cancer, decarbonisation in cities, climate adaptation, oceans and soil health. I mean, these are areas too where we see an encouraging number of elements in the national plans which are highly relevant to these objectives, and I think that it makes sense to try and join them up. Great. Well, look, thanks. We've had, I think, the 2 rounds of discussion, and the Slido system is getting almost out of control, so I must turn now to some of the questions that are there. And I'd like to start with, I think, what is the most popular question, which is about something that I think, Livia, you mentioned, the importance of using our activities under the RRF to incentivize and leverage private investment in research and innovation. And I just wonder whether you'd like to kick things off by perhaps sharing any experiences that you have in the Slovak system or more widely. And for Grasa and Celine, if you want to come in and you wave your hands, I will see you. Otherwise, I will maybe pick on you for other questions later on. But Livia, if you'd like to kick things off with this question on the important dimension of using publicly funded RRF investments on research and innovation to leverage also private investment, which we obviously need as well. Livia.
Okay, so what we are trying to establish is a working triangle between business, academia, and research and development in order to really produce some workable results for companies, and also to reform our universities in order that they are seen as a credible partners for businesses. And some partnerships like this are already happening. They're happening, for instance, in material science, but we would like basically to enlarge this to a larger spectrum of activities in order that it is driving towards more productive activities in the private sector. I think that this is the intention. We would like also, and here I will comment on what has been said before on the Horizon 2020. We would like to support activities that are unfortunately somehow maybe below, but they're still of excellent quality in the horizon. So we would like to support them from our RRP. This is a clear link to what has been mentioned by Maria and by Celine. Also, we would like to support researchers that will then deliver and will also incentivize this triangle between academia, R&D, and businesses.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. I don't see Celine or Grasa urging to answer this question in addition, but I see there's a question which I can address perhaps to Celine, which is about the engagement with external stakeholders and the sort of broader public discussion around priorities under the RRF and the national plans. And the question, I guess, is, that we've been very, very diligent and I think thorough in involving stakeholders in a broad consultation in the preparations of the different national plans and the broader next generation EU strategy. But is this something that's going to continue? And how are you planning to follow up with continued stakeholder engagement as we move into the implementation and delivery phase of the national plans?
Thanks a lot, Patrick. Yes, involvement of stakeholders is absolutely crucial for the ownership of the plan, but also for the success of the plan, because they know best. They are on the ground and they know what has to be done and how we can best support them. So it is clearly envisaged to continue the dialogue that has taken place in most member states, not equally in all, I have to admit, but in most member states, in the making of the plan. And I think that will have two dimensions as far as we can see from now. One at EU level, where we really have the firm intention to keep the dialogue with the EU associations and stakeholders group on the implementation of the facility, and also to best assess the benefits for research and innovation in particular, but that's applicable to all other sectors. And also at national level in the implementation of the plan, that is something that we will do jointly with the member states, building on the very good dialogue that we had in the context of the European semester. And here the fact that the Commission has colleagues dealing with the recovery and resilience facility in each and every member state based in the representations will certainly help fostering and continuing that process as we go along, because we really see it as key. Thank you.
Great, thanks very much, Celine. So something we do need to keep working on as we look forward, and we're grateful for the engagement we've had so far. I've got another question that I'd like to bring now to Grasa, maybe, and it's about the risk that we see, and we had a session on this yesterday with our Commissioner Maria Gabriel, on what we call innovation cohesion. How do we make sure that all member states benefit to the same extent with the boost to research and innovation that potentially is available here from the Recovery and Resilience Facility? And more generally, do you have any comments to make on how we can seize this moment of opportunity around the green and digital transitions to ensure that all member states benefit fully from the opportunities?
It's a very important topic for Europe. The innovation gap between the different member states and inside the member states between different regions. So there are several components for that. One is the investment. And we have to make sure that all the member states invest in research and innovation, and they invest well. So we have been discussing this during this conference. Also the importance of investing in fundamental research and bottom-up research, not only top-down. It's very important, but it's not the only. It's probably the investment takes availability of funds, but it's probably the easiest to solve. There is another point that is the ecosystem, and the ecosystem requires reforms that not only relate with the research and higher education, reforms in the university systems, but requires also reforms related with the tax system, the judicial system, the bureaucracy. So we need to have the ecosystem that allows the innovation to happen. And that is sometimes very difficult, takes time, but will be important that there are also all efforts in all the member states to do this ecosystem. And the third, that is very important, is that the collaboration. In order to narrow the gap, we should cooperate. And because of that, we have included since Horizon 2020 schemes like the twinning and the teaming, where teams that are excellent, but in less intensive research regions, cooperate with research teams in higher intensive research regions, because it's the fastest way that you reach out is to work together. And this is really an added value of our European programs, that somewhere in Europe you can always cooperate with the best universities, with the top researchers in Europe. Find your best researchers where they are and cooperate with them. Like this, the gap will be narrowed much, much quicker than to try to do it alone. So it's all these components that we need to do: investment, reforms, and cooperation at European level, and even cooperation at global level. Because I think that in science we should continue to cooperate outside Europe with the best minds that we have in each field, because we have a lot to gain with this cooperation.
Great, thanks, Gasa. Some very important points there. And I know that Livia wants to comment on this same issue, and I think it'd be great to get your perspective indeed as a country which I'm sure is hoping to benefit from this boost to your research and innovation performance from the RRF. So Livia, please.
A very relevant question about innovation centre and peripheries. It was also at the heart of our debate when conceiving the RRP, because exactly that's happening, that our best researchers, our best minds are going to the centre because they receive better salaries and they receive better conditions. So that's why on top of R&D component that we have in our RRP, we have also put together a component that is attracting and retaining talent in Slovakia. So definitely what we are trying to do with all the elements of component on R&D, on retention and attraction of talent, is to provide better conditions, more internationalizations, English programs at universities, provide scholarship, provide support to researchers when they come back to Slovakia. So I think that this is a very important point. I think that there is no I would say silver bullet that can solve it. But what has been happening in the past is that there was a strong concentration of best minds to the innovation center. If we would like to have this kind of innovation cohesion, we need to also find ways how to attract these talents also to the periphery, in order that we do not have a very big differentiation between what's happening in the center and what's happening on the periphery. Other ways how to deal with it is also to develop the smart specialization strategies, that small countries like Slovakia cannot have excellent research in all areas. We need to pick our winners, and we need basically to invest more and attract talents exactly in these areas in order to have a chance to compete at the EU level or even globally.
Thanks very much, Livia. And I think it's also fair to say that we've been working with you and Slovakia in the context of our policy support facility, which is one of our measures which is intended to, of course, provide help and support for member states in designing your national reform strategy for research and innovation. I don't know whether in the few minutes we have left, whether you'd like to say a word or two on your experiences with that, because I see there was a question also in the chat from someone.
I personally do not have an experience with the policy support facility. I have an experience with the policy support instrument that we were using for the preparation of the plan, and that we are now using for preparing the implementation methodology. But of course, Slovakia would like to use the PSF facility in order basically to support reforms. There are 3 reforms that we would like to support, and this is the reform of governance, evaluation, and support in science, then the national strategy to R&D, and then the transformation of the Slovak academic science. So we are very helpful for the facility, and definitely we would like to use it.
Thanks very much, Livia. And indeed, I mean, I think that opens up a broader discussion that we unfortunately won't have time for today, which is, as we move forward with the recovery and resilience process, as we will move forward with our instruments like Horizon Europe, how can we engage in a permanent and constant and mutually supportive way with partners in our member states to ensure that you are best able to exploit the full opportunities that these various instruments can provide. So I feel we're coming to the end of our session today, so I would like to draw things to a close by thanking firstly very warmly all of our audience and for your many questions in Slido, and apologize that we haven't managed to answer all of them, but I hope we've picked on the most popular questions. I'd like to thank our panelists for what's for me been an extremely rich and instructive debate on a topic of fundamental importance for the future of the European Union as we confront these green and digital transition challenges. And I think that the contribution that the Recovery and Resilience Facility, Next Generation EU, and the opportunities that it offers for us to kickstart the building back better of our economies and societies is one that we are seizing with both hands. So just looking ahead, I hope that we can continue to count on the strong engagement of member states in taking this agenda forward, and really don't hesitate to reach out to us if there are ways that we can further help and support you in this journey. So thank you all very much.